the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, welcome back to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. I'm continuing my discussion with Summer, who was diagnosed with her MS in 2017. Summer, so being a doctor and an MS patient, and a newer MS patient, how is your relationship with your neuro, being a doctor? I mean, do you go in there like as a doctor, or do you go in there as a patient and just sit there and listen to the neuro and ask questions like I would do?
Honestly, kind of both. I am actually really lucky. At least I consider myself lucky. My neuro, many people within the MS community knows who he is. I see Dr. Aaron Boster in Ohio, um, and he actually always kind of asks me, "Do you want me to approach this as a physician, your physician today, or do you want me to approach this as a typical patient today?" And it all depends on kind of how I'm doing that day. Some days I'm going to be like, nope, I'm just a patient. Other days I'm a little bit more cognitively intact, and I'll tell him, it's okay, go ahead and talk to me as another physician. But even then, because I'm not a neurologist, even then, I oftentimes have a lot of questions for him. And he's really good about answering them. So, yeah, I'm really lucky to have the physician I do have, but I do both, kind of both.
Gotcha. So, how often have you looked at your own scan, and like how many times have you gone over your own scan? Because being a doctor, you know what you're looking at. I mean, I look at my scan and I just see, a big blob on the X-ray. I don't really understand it. Do you find yourself looking at your MRIs, and just like trying to read them yourself?
Every single time I look at my own MRIs, there are times I will ask, "What is this? What's this?" And again, I'm not a radiologist. I'm not a neurologist. So there's going to be times that I look at it and I'm like, I don't know what that is. Let me ask. Other times I'll see something like, "Hey, is this a new lesion? Is this?" And go from there. But I always look at them. I think they're kind of cool to look at, to be honest.
I wish I knew how to read them, actually. I mean, I look at them and like my neurologist can point stuff out to me, like there's a lesion there and all that, and I'm like, okay, to me it just kind of looks like a blob, but yeah, if I knew what I was looking at, I think it would be very interesting.
Well, maybe sometime if we ever get a chance to get together in person, I'll sit down with you and kind of show you
That would
some
be
basic.
that would be
Here's how you look at it.
Yeah, we're only a couple hours apart. That would be awesome.
And I'm more than happy to do that for you sometime. It'd be cool just to get together, but
yeah, I mean, it would be. I can sit here and like I'm asking you questions. I can sit here and talk to you all day long. I mean, we just spent 2 hours talking before we even started recording. I mean, you're just so easy to talk to, Summer. I love talking to you.
well, you're super easy to talk to as well. It just puts me at ease and we can have a discussion.
I appreciate that. So as a doctor, I'm going to ask you the question. I got doctor questions, I got MS questions, but as a doctor, I know a lot of people that I record with. We always talk about the cure, where we think we're going to be with the cure, and I was back in 2000, or I'm sorry, 1997. When I got diagnosed, and I was told back then, we're probably about 10 years away. And, here we're 27 years later and we still don't have a cure. Although I do think that we're way farther towards that point of medical with MS. But where do you see the advancements of medicine going, and where we're at with the cure?
I'm going to be honest, I think we are still much further than 10 years away from a true or a true cure. I do think that we are closer, like you said. I think that there are things that are promising thus far, other than maybe some of the stem cell transplants. That's the closest thing to a cure. And even that study wise only show they last about 10 to 15 years. So I still think that and that doesn't mean other people don't have longer improvement, just what we would call a true cure.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think we're quite a ways away from one, and for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I know a lot of it is, it's just the research. I mean, it takes forever to run tests on the drugs, and I know we had a great discussion about the pharmaceuticals, and just the path that our DMTs have taken through the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, I actually think that part of the reason why we're further than we realized from a cure is to give you an example. Initially I was diagnosed with MS, and then they switched me to NMO, and then back to MS. At one time, NMO was considered a highly aggressive terminal form of MS, and then they found the autoantibodies that caused it, and through that, they also realized that many of the typically good MS DMTs actually made this subset of people worse, and as a result, they killed this subset of people off, and now they have a separate disease, which is great. We can focus on coming up with treatments there that work better for those. But even within that group, there's seronegative, seropositive. And in MS, we don't know the autoantibodies that are causing it or that are playing a role in it, right? We don't know any potential triggers. Like people have talked about before, EBV being a trigger. Well, yeah, but many people have had EBV. I mean, that causes mono. Many people have had that and don't develop MS.
Right.
So is it a potential trigger for some? Sure. What I am getting at is that it is a potential that MS is kind of more an umbrella diagnosis for a bunch of similar but different diseases. And as a result, the cure, quote unquote cure, is not necessarily going to be a single thing, because it's a snowflake disease, not just compared to each other, but within our own selves too.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Doc. I know that, it's been frustrating for me as a patient, being 27 years. And I know that people that are newly diagnosed in this disease, that's one of the first things they start Googling. They're like looking, where are we at with the cure? And, just to hear it coming from an MS patient, one, and also a doctor on where we're at, I just find that just so interesting to hear that standpoint coming from you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I will say this, it doesn't mean that there's not progress. There's been a ton of progress, and there's even some really cool things that are just finishing up phase 3 trials that will really help people with progressive MS if it gets approved.
Mm-hmm.
But that then brings up some other issues, right?
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. I know I had this conversation with my stepdaughter who is in pharmacy school. I asked her, about the cure and all that, and she gave me her opinion on it. But she also said that she thought that AI was going to be a very big and very important in the medical field. What is your thought of AI?
I think the AI has a potential to help in a lot of ways. I think it helps speed things up. Right now, much of the AI, the biggest help it is in the medical field is helping completing documentation so that we can get things done quicker. And that's a whole issue. But until right now, as it is, you still definitely need a physician, whether it be looking at your radiology reports, your scans, all that. You still need human eyes on it because AI is still learning. Can it learn quicker than humans? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But right now,
it's at its infancy.
Right now, it's hard to know how hard. Right. It's kind of like, is the AI still a resident, or is it an attending?
Right.
And if it's an attending, is it a specialist in this area? Right. So it's, it doesn't mean that AI cannot play a role. I think it can. Just it still needs a lot of checks.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I just like I said, I just wanted to get your opinion of all these questions being on the doctor side of it. I mean, I'm only on the patient side.
Yeah.
And these are a lot of questions that I know a lot of people, when I have conversations with people that I'm recording with, this is the stuff that we talk about on the side, and
Mhm.
it's just interesting to hear it from a physician, and it's just awesome.
Well, thank you.
So
Hopefully, I can provide some insight to some of these questions.
no, I appreciate you. And so I'm going to flip back into when you're as a doctor, and I know we had this discussion in our first episode that, there's good doctors and bad doctors, and we got to, figure it out, and we got to go to find a good doctor. But I want to talk about the medical system. And I know we had
Okay.
a great conversation about the doctors and how they are paid and how they are kept into the health system. And I said, why don't health systems get rid of the good doctors? And your answer was just like, I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's very interesting. So can you kind of explain to everybody how, like, you say we got bad doctors out there. Why doesn't the medical system get rid of them, and why don't they?
Well, primarily it has to do with reimbursement. I know that our healthcare system should not be for profit. And I know there are a lot of nonprofit organizations, but reimbursement, including in nonprofit organizations, really dictates a lot. So most physicians are paid either straight salary plus something called RVU, or straight RVU. And RVUs are essentially there's like a number given to different codes. The higher the code, the higher the RVU. And that also helps dictate how reimbursement goes. So, say, for example, you see a primary care doctor who they bill your insurance $300, just throwing a number out there. And that's because of the higher level of service. Say you were a new patient, plus you had a couple of acute issues. So, it's kind of this double billing thing that occurs because acute issues cannot be billed under new visits or under well exams, for example. They have to actually be billed as a separate code on top of it.
Mhm.
So the doctor's office bills the insurance company $300. Well, the doctor's office and the insurance company have a negotiation about how much the insurance company is going to actually reimburse. And how much is actually reimbursed is a combination of your copay or deductible plus how much they actually will pay for the service. So a lot of times that $300 bill only may get reimbursed at a total of 150, and say your copay is 40 of that. You pay 40, the insurance company pays 110. Of that 110, the physician oftentimes, especially in primary care, may only get actually between 32 and 40 for the 32 to 42-ish dollars, depending on the level, depending on a few factors. The rest of it stays at the practice to help pay for, the other staff, the utilities, everything else that goes on in keeping the practice open. So the physician, at the end of the day, is getting reimbursed. Typically, especially in primary care, specialists get paid a little bit more, but between $30 and $40 to actually see you. So when they're being told by and because of the way contracts are worked out, a good physician, realistically, particularly when we're talking about things like MS or other chronic issues, or if you're not diagnosed yet and you're trying to figure out what's going on with you, realistically, these appointments should be a lot longer than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But because in order to see the number of patients in the day, because of the way the reimbursement works, in order to see enough patients that both the clinics can actually stay open and the physician can actually pay their student loans, their everyday expenses, just like everyone else has,
Right.
oftentimes those visits get cut short and they end up seeing way more patients in a day, or as you mentioned earlier, double booking, all sorts of things And then that means that the patient isn't getting what they,
Yeah.
the time that they deserve and need. And so it turns into a much longer, protracted length of time just to get a diagnosis or to get the MRIs you need or to get, whatever it is that you need ends up taking a lot longer,
Right.
in part because of that. And then because of that, maybe the note doesn't have all the information to get you the MRI paid through your insurance immediately. Instead, you have to jump through a lot of hoops that if we just had more time with you, probably wouldn't have to jump through as many hoops to get the things that you ultimately are going to need anyway.
Right. Yeah, no, and a lot of this is dictated because of the insurance companies. The insurance companies, they dictate a lot of the billing part of it. You're billing for 15
Right.
minutes, 30 minutes, and it's just a lot of people don't understand. Yeah, you get frustrated with the doctor, and there are bad doctors out there, but they're looking
Yeah.
all they're looking at are the numbers, though. I mean, if that bad doctor is seeing his patients on a regular basis, he's making them money, he's making money, and they don't bother getting rid of them. And
Perfect.
we had this discussion before. And the good doctors that take the time with their patients and may run over, those are the ones that don't get their contracts renewed. It's just mind-boggling how the system is just messed up.
And not only do they not get their contracts renewed, so therefore they leave and they have to go somewhere else to practice, right? Not only that, but even if they're getting their contracts renewed, a lot of times they're spending over 100 hours a week just getting things done so that the billing can get completed in time so that they don't lose their job. So they get burnt out from having to spend 180 to 100 hours a week, much of it off the clock, meaning time they're not actually getting reimbursed for, but just in order to submit the 40 hours a week that they do see.
Yeah, it's just and this is the stuff that we don't get to really understand because we're the patient, but we're hearing it from a patient and an actual doctor, and it's just awesome to talk to you.
Well, and I feel like the way the healthcare system is set up not only abuses physicians and NPs and PAs and nurses, it also abuses patients.
Yeah,
It forces patients to get substandard care, even from a physician that maybe really wants to be able to provide it to you, but because of the pressures put on them in order to do the things to get reimbursed, that $30 that they're actually getting from seeing you ends up being such a I mentioned earlier, for example, if on my 15-minute appointments with my patients, not all, but many of them, I actually spend about 45 minutes total on work involved in that.
right.
And if I'm seeing 20 to 25 patients a day, that means that, and I'm seeing that at 8 hours, that means that 8 hours suddenly becomes, you know, what, 20 hours?
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah, it is. Everybody sees the money that the doctors make, and you guys aren't hurting, but there is so much work behind the scenes that goes on that just people. I just love what people like you that are actually the patient and the doctor just explaining that, just so that we understand it. I mean, we can understand this better coming from your end.
or and then, as an MS patient, you know how exhausting this disease can be, how I think a lot of patients with chronic illnesses have a lot of fatigue, a lot of exhaustion. Well, I also have that, and I'm working these huge amount of hours.
Right,
And then, like many people, I also have a family. So it's how many plates can you keep in the air at once?
right,
It gets very difficult, even for physicians that don't have a chronic illness. How many plates can they keep spinning at once?
right.
Their patients, the admin duties. Oh, they want you to be in X, Y, and Z. A lot of times, hospital systems will want physicians to be involved in 3, 4 different um, oh groups. So, like
Yeah,
your quality teams, your credentialing teams, your ethics teams, things like that. Right?
right.
These different committees, and those are oftentimes unpaid hours that they're also working on top of being on call, which does not get. That's actually just part of their salary. You don't actually get paid for being on call. And I said earlier, for example, I'm on call only once every 13, 14 weeks,
Right.
which isn't bad, but I am on call for 24/7 during that week.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very intense. And then you look at this and you're like, oh, these people also have families. And then you get physicians that have chronic illnesses, and there are a bunch that do.
Right.
How many plates can we keep in the air before something crashes?
Yeah.
And at some point, physicians have to kind of decide, either I see less patients so that I can do a better job, but financially they can't always afford that, or they risk losing their job if they do that, or do they just burn out and leave?
Yeah. And I know.
And either way, the patient ends up with less physicians that are competent and able to take care of them.
Yeah, I know we were talking about that, and it's just that this is all just part of the system, and the system is broke. It's broke on the patient side.
It is.
It's broke on the provider side too. And I
Mhm.
would love for it to get fixed sooner rather than later.
Correct. I actually think, unfortunately, I know we talked a little bit about some of the student loan caps a little bit earlier. I think it's actually going to get worse before it gets better, not just for the providers, not just for pharmacists, not just for nurses, but really for patients. And that's unfortunate, because I don't want to see patients get hurt.
Hmm.
I don't want to see patients get harmed
Yeah,
before things change, because that's not okay.
yeah,
But unfortunately, I think that's the direction we're headed.
yeah. I know we talked a lot about that. With we're already at a shortage for doctors and nurses and attorneys. Well, not attorneys.
Pharmacists,
Yeah, pharmacists.
pharmacists,
Yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, and the tuition cap and all that, and that's going to cause a trickle down effect on the patient.
it is.
And we talked
It
a lot
is.
about that. Yeah, and it's just
And unfortunately, you're only going to get students that come from wealthy families going into these programs. And I'm not saying that those students aren't doing it always. I'm not saying that they're not doing it for the right reason. There's a bunch of them that are. But you're going to get less numbers of them who are very privileged financially to begin with. And some of them, although not all, let's be very, very fair here. I want to be clear, not all, many, for example, multi-generational pharmacists or multi-generational physicians, their kids sometimes feel a pressure to do that,
right,
even if it's not what they really want to do.
right.
That certainly isn't going to help patients.
Yeah,
And it also excludes a lot of potentially really smart, good people who would be phenomenal physicians or pharmacists or nurses or NPs or PAs or, you know, physical therapists. It prevents them from being able to do it because they just simply can't afford it.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
you get less good talent, and in the long run, that's going to hurt patients,
Yeah,
not just providers, not just the healthcare system, but patients as well.
yeah, I agree with you, Summer. So I'm going to ask you. I want to go back because you were mentioning something
Yeah.
a couple of minutes ago about the fatigue part, and I know we had a conversation about the fatigue, and we were talking about, I tell somebody that I'm fatigued, and they kind of just look at me and they're like, yeah, okay, your legs are, they're hurting or whatever. They just don't understand that. And I loved your explanation of fatigue. Can you kind of try to explain your fatigue
Yeah.
and the great explanation that you gave me a little while ago?
Yeah. I'll see if I can, I'll see if I can restate it as well.
Yeah.
Um, excuse me. No, fatigue, when it comes to MS fatigue, or realistically a lot of chronic illnesses, isn't just being exhausted or tired. It's oftentimes things like you're so exhausted you can't get out of bed. You're so exhausted you can't think about how to brush your teeth. There have been times I've been so fatigued I have a hard time even figuring out how to open TikTok, let alone roll it, right?
Hmm.
This fatigue is such a different, all encompassing, cannot even function fatigue. And I think that obviously not just MS patients have this. A lot of people with chronic illnesses, but I'm going to be honest, people I've heard understood what MS fatigue is the MS that don't have MS are those with chronic depression. It is this just all encompassing, overwhelming exhaustion that you can't, your brain can't function, your body can't function. Even if you know, I want to move my leg so that I can get out of bed, your leg may not physically respond because nothing is working. It's not just being tired, it's not just being exhausted. And, prior to MS, I was a single parent for many years while I was going through undergrad, while I was going through medical school, while I was going through residency. And that's exhausting. That is tiring.
Hmm.
It is nothing like when we talk about pathological fatigue, which is what MSers and people with other chronic illnesses are suffering. It's not just being tired, it's pathological.
Yep. I try to explain to people like the fatigue part. Like when I tell them my legs are fatigued, I'm like, okay, you look at University of Michigan football stadium. I used to run those stadium steps. That was our conditioning and all that. We ran up and down them, up and down them, up and down them. When we got done running them, my legs were fatigued. And, people can relate to that, like that kind of an exercise. And I'm like, okay, understand that fatigue. Now multiply that by about 50. And that's what my legs feel like. They feel like jello. And I know they're there and I know what I want them to do in my head, but they don't want to do it. Right.
And it's not because it was induced by something like exercise, for example. I mean,
Right.
that can make an MSer's fatigue worse. But it's not just that. It's that it's induced by just nothing. Like it's induced by the fact that your myelin sheath isn't functional, so nothing is going anywhere appropriately. So it's kind of like you said, taking that, people who can understand the exercise fatigue, it's like taking that, multiplying it by 100, and then also giving no exercise to cause it.
Yeah.
Just because you woke up that day that way.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely, Summer. So let me ask you this, Summer. How do you, I mean, you're a doctor and you got two kids, you got MS, you got primary progressive. And how do you stay motivated? I mean, what motivates you to keep on going? Because I know that we talked a lot about like in your early days or earlier prior or to your MS diagnosis, you were like big into concerts and crowd surfing and all that.
Mhm.
But I mean, you're not letting your MS stop you from doing any of that, and I love that attitude about you. Just talk about like how you keep on going. I mean, you are in a wheelchair, not by your choice, and you can't get out of it. You practice your medicine in a wheelchair. You see your patients in a wheelchair, and you still have the fun that you used to have, still in a wheelchair. Just talk a little bit about how you stay motivated and how you keep on living your life.
Okay, real quick, I want to correct one thing. I have what they typically call secondary progressive. At least that's the thought, not primary progressive.
I'm sorry.
No, we never did get all the. No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure the audience knew that more than anything. You don't need to apologize. But no, so my general thought is I'm going to control the things I can control and try not to stress about the things that I cannot control or things that aren't happening right now. So I do that. And then I also say, I look at my wheelchair, for example, like you said, it wasn't my choice that I use a wheelchair, but it is also freedom. Because without having that wheelchair, I couldn't still be a practicing physician. I couldn't continue to go to concerts. Now, I have a power chair that I use most of the time for concerts and events. We take my manual chair. But without that, I couldn't still crowd surf. And yes, I still crowd surf even in my manual wheelchair.
Love that.
Because these are the things that bring me joy. These are the things that bring me joy. And if you don't have joy in your life, life becomes harder. So yes, I have to do things totally different than I did before. Like when I crowd surf now, it's a production. We have to plan it out. We have to think about, okay, where am I at in the crowd? How do I get up there? Uh, get a whole group of people willing to lift me up and signal to the crowd that I'm coming, and take the foot plates off and make sure I'm strapped in, and make sure all these different things that have to be done
Hmm.
to do it safely for both me and the crowd. But you know what? I enjoy it. So I've had to modify things that I do. I've had to figure out different ways to do it. I mentioned in a conversation we were having one time that, for example, I'm taking sit ski lessons because I grew up in Utah. I love doing skiing and snowboarding, did when I was younger. I've never been great at it, but it's always been fun. Well, I can't do that like I used to do. So I've sought out doing sit ski lessons. You know, I still need to figure out how to do skydiving, but that's a landing issue. But my point is you find out things, remember who you were before the disease, and you remember the things that you loved to do, and some of them you're not going to be able to do. Okay, but a lot of them you can. You just have to find different ways to do it. I don't crowd surf nearly as much as I used to
Right.
because it's just not easy to do as much as I used to do. It's not as easy for me or the crowd. Okay, so I have to also reset expectations of, instead of going a whole bunch during a show, I might only go twice.
Yeah, absolutely. I do the same thing. I do the same thing. I've had to make so many modifications to this journey that I've been on. I used to be able to golf. I loved golfing. I wasn't any good at it, but I mean, I did golf outings, all that. I had a good time. I never had a problem with it. And once I lost the ability to be able to do that, I kind of got depressed about it. I missed golf, but I found a video game. I mean, a stupid video game that I play on my phone that is almost as realistic to golf as I can get. And I still play, I mean, I figured that out. I can still fulfill my love of golf by playing a video game. I still love to fish, and it's hard for me to get on a boat, but I figured it out. I figured out how to get down the dock, how to get onto the boat. I got people to help me. I'm not afraid to ask for help. And I think that's another key.
You have to,
Yeah,
right.
go
We
ahead.
have to be willing to ask for help.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to ask for help. My husband helps me with so many things. I can no longer really clean around our house because between being a wheelchair user and the fatigue, it's virtually impossible for me except on really good days. And even then, it's like, I'm going to clean just this little part of the bathroom and that's it. So he does the cleaning, he does the cooking. I never liked cooking. I've always felt like cooking was a chore. He loves cooking. So that would work out for us, whether I had MS or not. But I can't stand long enough to cook, right? So he does the cooking. He also does the vast majority of the shopping because I can't do it by myself anyway.
Yeah.
I am a power chair user. How am I gonna? I mean, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Right.
And then, so I have to have someone with me anyway. But it's also exhausting for me. So he does the shopping.
Yeah.
He has picked up so many things around the house. And then on really bad days, sometimes I need his help to dress myself. I self cath. Sometimes he has to do my cathing for me because I cannot do it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I had to get really used to asking for help. Anymore, he's so good about it. He just kind of knows when I need help and just does it.
Oh, sure.
But, we've been together for a while now. But, even outside of that, if I am out somewhere and a door is too heavy for me to open, I have to be willing to ask for help.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's part of how you continue to live life.
Yeah. And I struggled with that, but I'm better
Oh,
at
yeah.
it. I think everybody struggles with it because we want to be independent, but I mean,
Right.
you got to realize that, you're not going to be able to do everything, and that's okay. You're still the same person. You're not any different of a person. You just need help doing things. And, it was hard for me to accept, but I'm very better. I'm much better at accepting help now. And I really appreciate people that just offer the help, now that a lot of
Me
people,
too.
a lot of people can see that I struggle. I'm on a walker, I'm on a wheelchair or on a cane or even in a wheelchair. people will ask me for help, and I appreciate that.
Right. I do as well. And I want to say, when it comes to asking for help, I know that, like, at least for myself, it always feels like a little bit of loss of independence, right? Because you can't do something that you used to be able to do on your own, whether it be that you always need the help or just because that day is a bad day. I will say this, though, by asking for help, you do conserve what energy you do have so that you can better do the things you're able to do at that moment. So, like when I need help, excuse me, if I need help cleaning, well, by asking my husband to help or relying on him to do it, then I can do things better, like cathing myself, showering myself, dressing myself.
Yeah.
So I'm still maintaining some independence by asking and accepting help on the things I need help for,
I love that. I love
and
that so
maintaining independence on everything else. It's part of the reason why I'm still able to do crowd surfing or get in mosh pits or do the sit ski lessons or those things, because I'm willing to ask for the help
yeah.
in every way that I need the help in.
Yeah. And you're also willing to think outside the box too. And I tell people that, you might have been able to do something one way, 5 years ago, and this disease changes, and you got to figure out another way to do it. You got to think outside the box, and you got to come up with a different
Right.
way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not always easy to do. And I actually think that's part of the reason why things like podcasts that talk about this, or on TikTok for lives that with other MSers, or if you're more of a Facebook user, the Facebook groups that are MSers, building that community, because a lot of us don't have a lot of the other MSers that are close by, or if we do, we don't know it because people don't like to talk about it that much.
Right.
But if you build that community, you can sometimes better figure out alternative ways to do something. So if you're struggling coming up with a way to think outside of the box, other people may have done it,
Yep.
and they can give you what worked for them. Now, it may or may not work for you, but you can come up with lots of multiple suggestions. And if it doesn't work for you, sometimes just trying it, like, oh, say, you were someone that was a weightlifter before, you really like it.
Hmm.
Well, you can't do all of that all the time anymore. So if you talk to other people with MS that are weightlifters as well, they might be able to tell you some of the modifications they've made. And say their modification doesn't work for you, but through the process of trialing it, you might find something else that does work for you just from the physical process of trying it.
Yeah, I love that.
So
Love
this
that.
community is so important.
I love that, Summer. And that was going to be, you led me into our next conversation, is the community and how we found each other on TikTok. And, I know we were talking earlier how I didn't have a community. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I've just found this about a year and a half ago, and it is such a awesome thing to experience, just talking to people all over the world, that totally understand what you're talking about when you say, oh yeah, my leg is, feels like a firecrackers inside of it today. Or, I mean, people just understand, just talking to other people. Just talk a little bit about how we found each other on TikTok and finding the community.
Okay. So, when I've gone through a whole range. Like I said, I was initially diagnosed with relapsing MS. Then I was switched over to seronegative NMO, and then back over to uh, progressive MS. And through that course, you know, I first of all, I didn't know anyone that had those diseases at all initially, the entire way through. And both with the when it was the NMO diagnosis or the MS, I've been able to find people. I'm going to be honest, TikTok is where I found most of them that do have these diseases, and then you start talking to them and you build connections. And in our case, I think we were both just in the same live at one point,
Yeah.
and somebody goes, "Hey, I want you two to get to know each other a little bit because you guys can talk about this." And it
Yeah.
it does open a lot of doors. It doesn't just open doors of different ways to do things and different tricks that may or may not help you, and leading you to discovering your own tricks that you share with someone else. It doesn't just do that. It also gives you support.
Yeah.
On those days that something weird is going on and you're not sure, is this MS or is it something else?
Yeah.
Other people that have MS can help you kind of figure that out. It also gives you just somebody that on a bad day, and you're just having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, there are other people there that are willing to listen and support
Yeah.
and just be there for you. So you're not alone. Because I think a lot of us feel very alone in our everyday lives because we don't know other people with MS. When I had NMO, I didn't know anybody else with NMO at all outside of social media. Um, with MS, I do know a few outside of social media in my everyday life, but it's rare.
Yeah.
And just having someone you can say, hey, I'm really fatigued, or this heat is really getting to me, or this cold is really getting to me. Just having someone say, oh, I'm really sorry you're going through that.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that in of itself is almost more helpful than the tricks and tips on how to get through stuff, you know?
I've talked to so many people, Summer, on TikTok, that were having a bad day, and just from them going into a live and talking to all of us, they left that live feeling better, and for whatever reason, whether
Having hope,
yeah, yeah, it just
having hope.
it and just like to piggyback on what you were saying, like you only knew a few people outside of TikTok. I knew one person in 27 years. I knew one person on a personal level. And now I'm now on TikTok. I think I don't know. I'm up to 1,500 followers, and I got like 200 people's phone numbers in my phone that all have MS all over the world. And it's awesome just talking to them. Like, yeah.
One of my, in real life, one of my really good friends that I go to concerts with that lives close to me is also an MS patient. I met her through the concert scene, not through MS. But I'll tell you, just having her in that scene has been such a relief. We actually work together, not work together in a work sense, but we actually on Facebook together, along with several other people with other disabilities, um, help manage a Facebook group that is for people with disabilities that are going to a particular set of festivals by a particular production company to help make their experience better. We work with them and we communicate directly with the group hired to deal with, to provide disability services, but also the promoters and the production company themselves to help them better understand what sort of things are necessary and what works and doesn't, right? So it's phenomenal to build this community with other people. It's honestly, it's what helps me cope day to day far better than the medications help manage my symptoms. Don't get me wrong, I need those medications,
Yeah.
but it's what helps in the side of things that meds can't treat this.
Yeah.
Meds can't give you a support system. They can't help you know you're not alone.
Right.
But knowing you're not alone, it certainly helps provide some motivation and helps you keep positive.
Yeah, and it helps your mental health. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
so much, and I tell everybody. I mean, for me, the mental health part of this disease, 27 years of it, has been so much harder than the physical part of this MS. That's been a battle for me. Just the mental games that this disease does to you, and to find people that can just relate to that, that understand, and just talk about it. And just
Yeah.
have a conversation about it. It's just so important for your mental health.
I mean, I'll be honest, if I did not have these communities, so involving you and the other people that we've met through TikTok and through other kind of so, not really official support groups, but places we find the support, right?
Yeah.
Um, Meeting those people have helped it so that I don't sit there and just think of all of the things this disease has taken from me. It's taken my ability to walk. It's taken my ability to urinate without assistance. It's taken my ability to see my peripheral vision because of optic neuritis. I have lost peripheral vision. I have color desaturation. Uh, I've got double vision, and then I have really bad vision at baseline, and then I have Sjögren's on top of it. So there's several things with my eyes going on, right? Um, it has taken my uh, it has made fatigue worse. It is all of these things that it has done to me. If I didn't have these this social community that we have built, my mental health would be a lot worse, and I would not enjoy life. I don't know that I'd be a practicing physician still. I don't know that I would go to concerts like I still do. I don't know that I would be pursuing sit ski lessons like I am doing. I don't know that I'd be talking to people about trying to figure out a way to, hey, how can I learn skydiving? You know, uh,
Yeah.
I don't think I would enjoy life.
Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%, Summer. That TikTok community has really made a difference in my life. And I just think it's so important, any way you can to reach, you got to find a common ground with people that understand this disease. Because, I mean, even if you got a great husband or a great wife or great kids, I mean, if they don't have the disease, they're not going to understand a lot of things. And, and
Correct.
I think that frustrates us, because we're trying to get them to understand, but they can't understand. Because I know I talk to a lot of people on TikTok or even on the podcast that, that is a frustration to them.
Yes.
They come to us and we talk about it and we're like, yeah, we get it, we understand, and
Yep.
it's just, it's,
And
yeah, go ahead.
oh no, as I say, and when it comes to my husband, you're right. He's a phenomenal husband. He does so many things to help. He doesn't live with his disease himself. He sees we struggle with it, and he's so good. One of the things that Dr. Boston, my neurologist, had requested, he said, only if it's okay with me. And I'm like, of course it's okay with me as long as my husband can do it, because he works a very full-time job as well.
Hmm.
He wants him out as many appointments as possible, not just so that in case my brain is all foggy, I've got someone there to help remember it, but also so that he gets a really good idea of what's actually going on with me and where we're thinking things are at and what's potential next steps as things come up or different ways that so he has a better understanding of it. And I think that's helpful, but it's still not the same as living with it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I need the support system of other MSers outside of my husband primarily. I mean, I'll be honest, there's days I feel really, really crappy that he has to do things to help me. And I feel like I'm putting too much burden on him.
Yeah.
So I don't always want to talk to him about that because I do, but sometimes I just feel really terrible. And he reassures me, no, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
But that fear that it's not okay is also real. So being able to talk to other investors about that in of itself is that I'm worried I'm becoming a burden on my loved ones.
Yeah. I know
Even if your loved ones reassure you that you're not, we feel like we are.
yeah. I know. I mean, 27 years I've been doing this and I still feel
Mm-hmm.
that way, I think that's just like a human nature, type of thing.
Yes.
Doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. It doesn't matter if you're 20 years old or if you're 60 years old. You want to be independent as long as you possibly can.
Right. And we feel like we're becoming a burden when we're less and less physically able to be dependent. And we worry that we're putting too much burden on our loved ones. And when we talk to our loved ones about it, because it's important that we keep that open communication with them. That's part of having a healthy relationship with someone, right?
Hmm.
At the same time, it sometimes it feels like, well, are you sure I'm not becoming a burden? And you worry that you're becoming too much, even if they reassure you that you're not. So having someone else that deals with this, that even if they can't tell you how to work through that, it's just like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. It's stressful. It's hard. That in of itself helps so much.
I,
So the community aspect of these chronic illnesses, and I, being an MSer, of course, that's what we're talking about. But having this community of other MSers is so important. And I recommended to my husband, why don't you try and find a group of people that are spouses or caregivers to MSers, so that because I'm quite sure there are things that they struggle with as well. And he's always like, no, I don't need that.
yeah.
I hope if he decides that he needs that eventually, I hope that things like that exist for him because I think it's important for them to
Yeah.
have a space they can discuss things, not in front of us.
I agree with you. I say that all the time. I mean, that we're in this fight, but our spouses or loved ones, they're in this battle too. I mean, they didn't sign up for it, but they kind of got drafted, by luck of the draw with because they're married to us, or there are parents or there are kids. I mean, they got inducted into this journey too.
Right. And so I do think it's important for even them to have a community that is separate from our community. Like, I'm okay with them listening to us and being like hearing what we're saying,
Hmm.
but they're not going to relate the same way to us as other people with MSR. But I also think it's important for them to have a space that they can talk and vent and come up with tips and ideas and talk about their stresses that, they're living through this but in a different way than us.
Yeah. Yep.
And they
Absolutely.
deserve that space too without us being involved in it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's an awesome idea. If it does exist, I think that spouses should, um, they should get involved in something like that because it's a hard journey for them too. I mean,
Right.
I've heard, my wife has seen some crazy things with me, and I know that, that's hard on her. That's hard on her to see me like that,
Right.
and they got to
And
deal
my
with it too.
husband, like I said, my husband has helped me with my self cathing. Like he's had to cath me before.
Right.
My husband, my last real serious relapse that landed me in the hospital. And I had Plex for the second time. And it's also the one where I developed some brainstem lesions that were affecting my respiratory drive and all these other things. You know, he literally had to carry me into the ER, physically pick me up and carry me in there. And he had to watch me and he had to worry about, was I going to survive this or not?
Right.
And, that's something that I'm not seeing that from his perspective. So I can talk about how scary it was for me. I can talk about how it felt for me, but I can't talk about how it felt for him.
Right.
And I haven't lived his experience. So I think it's really good for even the spouses and parents, or like you said, children or other caregivers, whether it be other family members, whomever it is that is our help,
Yeah.
our family people. I think it's really important that they build a community just like we have. And I don't know that they always do. I don't even know how to tell them how to do it. Like we just kind of stumbled upon each other
Right.
by going into MS lives. I've never seen a live for spouses and loved ones of people with MS.
I have not either. I have not either. If it exists, I haven't seen it.
Correct. And I hope that there are people out there doing that. Now that said, I I couldn't relate to that because I'm not that. I'm the person with an S, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Hey, Summer, I would
uh,
love,
yeah.
I want to thank you so much for coming on today. Is there anything else that you want to say to anybody that is listening? Just one last message from you. I know I'm going to have you on again. I love talking to
Yeah.
you. I mean, I can sit here and talking to you all night long, but I know we've been talking almost an hour already. And I any
Yeah.
last thing that you want to say?
Well, I'm going to say I know that this is hard. I know this disease is hard. I know some days are really, really bad. I will say this. Try to just take it one day at a time. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. Deal with what you can that day and keep pushing forward. If you're not getting answers, go to a different doctor. If you're getting answers, but it's just having a bad day, it's okay. Remember that tomorrow's another day. Do what you can, conserve your spoons, love yourself, and try and just stress about all of the things that you can change and then don't stress about it because you can change it.
I love it, Summer. I love it.
Mm.
I really appreciate you, Summer. Like I said, I'll have you on again. I would have you on repeatedly because I would have so many questions for you. I mean, every time we have a conversation, it just flows so good. I you like
Great.
I You answer everything that I ask you. I mean, it doesn't matter what I ask you. You give me your honest answer. I just love talking to you.
And we can talk multiple times whenever you want. As new things come out of research, I'm more than happy to come on and discuss those and kind of break them down. I'm happy to discuss kind of my experiences. I'm happy to discuss anything anytime. Anytime. I'm an open book.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Summer. All right. This is the MS Michigan Man. I'm going to get going. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64. You can also find me on TikTok, MS Michigan Man 64. And I'm on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Till the next episode, MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.